Technofeudalism by Yanis Varoufakis, former finance minister of Greece, is a book full of insights that addresses problems we all worry about. Things like, aren't people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos too wealthy and powerful? Are AI algorithms I don't understand influencing my beliefs and behaviors? And perhaps most importantly, why do so many of us feel powerless to change this? Technofeudalism gives us a way to understand these issues, but despite the book's relevance, I would not necessarily recommend it. So in this book review video, I'll go over a few of Technofeudalism's main ideas, and then I'll give you my honest opinion on the book. So Technofeudalism is a theory about where our economic system and our society are going. Not where they're at right now, although parts of this are around right now. It's about our trajectory. It evolved out of capitalism, and Varoufakis, the author, spends a good chunk of the book going over capitalism, or at least how he understands capitalism. So we'll start there. Capitalism is a society where capitalists are at the top. The capitalists own the capital. Capital is the means of production. The means of production would be things like a factory building with all its machines and equipment, and whatever other stuff you need to make the physical structure there operational. That's capital. The capitalists exploit the proletariat, or the proles for short, who are basically factory workers and the rest of the working class. The proletariat works for an hourly wage to make profit for the capitalists. So as we speak, technofeudalism is evolving out of capitalism. Capitalists and capital are still with us, but capitalists are not at the top anymore. Cloud capitalists are above the capitalists, and the cloud capitalists own the cloud capital. So cloud capital is defined as the agglomeration of network machinery, software, AI-driven algorithms, and communications hardware crisscrossing the whole planet and performing a wide variety of tasks. So people like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, the cloud capitalists, or he calls them cloudalists for short, cloud capital is what they possess, as opposed to traditional capital. And to continue the contrast between these new cloud capitalists and the traditional capitalist, I'm going to use a simple example of a traditional capitalist within technofeudalism and tell you where he would stand and how he relates to these cloud capitalists. So our example, traditional capitalist, I'm going to call T-shirt guy. It's supposed to be a simple, accessible example. T-shirt guy owns a T-shirt factory. It makes T-shirts. T-shirt guy's factory basically converts fabric and dye and thread and, importantly, human labor into sellable T-shirts. Now in technofeudalism, T-shirt guy, a capitalist, if he wants to sell you his T-shirts, he has to pay the cloud capitalists to use their cloud capital. What does that mean? T-shirt guy has to buy ads to make you even know he exists, and maybe to get you to buy one of his shirts. If he's selling on Amazon, there are even other costs involved in that, or in other online platforms. The T-shirt guy, the traditional capitalists, is beholden to the cloud capitalists, and he has to give them money to access their awareness and their platforms that let him sell. This money the T-shirt guy is giving to the cloud capitalists is basically rent money. He has to pay rent money to access these services and do his own business at all. Just like the peasants had to pay rent to their lord in feudalism in medieval France and England and other parts of Europe, the T-shirt guy has to pay rent to Milord Jeff Bezos and the rest. If you would like to pay rent to Milord Jeff Bezos, I have an affiliate link for this book in the description. That is not an affiliate pitch that's going to get a lot of clicks, but there you go. It's down there. You're also welcome to like and subscribe. So back to T-shirt guy. He's giving the platforms money to get real people to buy his T-shirts. In other words, what he's doing is he's paying the cloud capitalists so that the cloud capitalists will use their cloud capital to get us to perform a specific behavior. The behavior of buying the shirts. This is possible because these platforms monitor my behavior, your behavior, our responses to various ads and other types of content, and they feed their algorithms with this data and use those algorithms to convert the T-shirt guy's money into the behavior he wants from us. We can call this incredible power that the cloud capitalists yield behavior modification. This data-powered algorithmic behavior modification is another key part of technofeudalism. Now, this t-shirt example of behavior modification might seem harmless and even silly. After all, it's just a t-shirt. But if you swap out the behavior of buy t-shirts into something more like vote a certain way or hold a certain belief and actively advocate it in this online atmosphere, you can see how this is extremely powerful. The book further argues that these online platforms are using our data that we give them to train algorithms that essentially then train us to train them more. I do think the book could have unpacked this a bit more and been a bit clearer and more concrete, but actually this is not as far-fetched as it might seem. So for example, we see ads on some platform to buy a subscription for another platform, for example Netflix, that provides content to us. When we use that content platform learns what we like and feeds us that, which is a sort of reward that trains us to continue using that platform for longer, giving it even more data and thus more accurate predictions, not just about us specifically, but about all people like us, and thus better recommendations and even more reward, and so on and so on. You'll notice that the users of these online services and the uploaders of content, like myself, maybe like you, are building cloud capital for the cloud capitalists, but mostly we're not being paid for this. And that's a third pillar of technofeudalism, is that the cloud capital is built for free by users of these online platforms. It is not built by wage labor, which traditional capital was. The machines in a factory that the hourly workers use were themselves built by hourly workers in a different factory somewhere, whereas that way to build capital through wage labor is not really the same in technofeudalism. So that's a summary of the main concepts, and now I'll get into how I feel about the book, what I liked and what I did not like. The section on what I did not like is significantly longer, so I'll do that first. You may have noticed as I was going over some of these concepts that a lot of them are a bit hazy around the margins and not well defined. And that's not because I'm doing a quick summary in a YouTube book review. It's also hazy and not quite clearly defined around the edges in the book. So for cloud capital, for example, he says that cloud capital is constructed for free by you and I, the cloud serfs, the users of these platforms. But in other places, like in the appendix where all the nice clear definitions are hiding, he says that cloud capital includes data centers. Now, a data center does not get built for free. It's built by wage labor, electricians, and construction workers and other people involved. So, is the physical data center capital or is it cloud capital? I'm really not sure. Or he says that the people who upload content to these platforms do not get paid and are working for free, but many of them do get paid. There's a lot of YouTubers who have bought houses and done quite well for themselves from this platform. And for people making content on Netflix, for example, I'm pretty sure they're almost all or all getting paid to do that. And he does specifically say in the book that it is this content that we are uploading for free, even though it's not all free, that is what is building the cloud capital. In the book, he never explicitly says that your data is part of what builds the cloud capital. I am saying that because that is my interpretation of what he must mean. You need data to train these algorithms. And he says the algorithms are part of cloud capital, and cloud capital is built for free. So between those two reasons, I can deduce that data must be part of cloud capital, the data you and I are producing and giving to these companies as we use these platforms. But as the author, he's supposed to clearly state that, not just let us assume it or imply it, or maybe he didn't mean that and I'm misconstruing it. He's supposed to be clear about those things, and I don't know that it's obvious to a lot of people in the general public that their data is what trains the algorithms that then feed them recommendations that then pull them deeper into the system. So those are a few specific criticisms of the ideas in the book, but most of the reason I don't like this book is just the way he presents these ideas, and the writing itself is often unclear and poorly structured. This lack of clarity and structure shows up most obviously in how he introduces readers to new terminology. He likes to make up words, but he is bad at introducing new words. What he'll do is he'll just start up using a new term that you've never seen before. And to be perfectly clear, these are terms, phrases that he invented. You would never have seen this elsewhere. And so you're reading this book, and you see some new term, and you think, did I miss where he introduced and clearly defined that term? And then you go skim backwards looking for the definition, and no, it's not there. You did not miss anything. And this is pretty frequent. He'll just start using these invented phrases and words before he's ever properly introduced the term. And sometimes he never actually does introduce these new terms properly. Other times he'll make an attempt to introduce them after he's already used the term a few times. And I say he makes an attempt because I really don't care for the way he does his introductions and for his style of logic and reasoning in general. So what he'll do is he'll take some line of thinking that he developed earlier in the book and kind of overextend it in a dubious way to lead into a sort of meaning for this new term. And then he'll throw out an example that seems to be related to the term he's introducing, and then he'll just go on using the term as if it's perfectly well defined, and it's not. It's not well defined. The rest of us are not exactly clear what you mean. And you might think, well, he's coming up with new abstractions and new concepts that are complex, that are difficult to define, and maybe it's just not possible to define them clearly and concisely. And that would be a perfectly valid counter-argument, except it 100% is possible to clearly define them, and it's objectively possible because in the appendix, there is a perfectly clear list of definitions for every term he makes up. So like, what is this? Why would you bury all the clear definitions in the back of the book? Why is that where you've smuggled in the clarity? This is bizarre. You should have a clear definition before you start using the term in the text. If you start using an invented word with no definition available, this confuses people. Why would you write that way? And his method of introducing new terminology and the way I just described, I do think characterizes more broadly the book's writing in general. The writing in the book is, to be a bit harsh, I would say the writing in the book is of a style more common in the social sciences, wherein someone will take a few concepts that themselves are a bit hazy around the margins, slap them together with a few half-baked deductions, give no data or almost no data to back this up, and then go on acting like they've uncovered something new and profound, and we're all supposed to take this new concept seriously. I'm sorry, I don't take that style of reasoning and writing seriously. I think he could have been more rigorous across the board. I did not find the argumentative style in the book convincing in the slightest. What I did like about the book is that it is a new view that's addressing things that worry all of us. Where's our data going, and how's it being used against us? Why do we keep using these platforms that seem rather predatory and even toxic? And aren't some people in our society, like Elon Musk, just unbelievably powerful in a novel way? So the book does address these things we need to be talking about, but its arguments and its ideas lack the grounding they'd require to be convincing to this reader. The book is also just a bit rambly and would be enhanced if they cut a solid 50% of it out. Now, if the whole book was written the way Appendix 1 is, here's another screenshot from Appendix 1, I would give this book a higher grade. Appendix 1 is perfectly readable, nice and clear, concise, has several lovely diagrams showing how all of this fits together. Why are you hiding your nice diagrams in the back of the book? This is a silly thing to do, right? I don't understand why the clarity is hidden. To be honest, I would not have read the appendix, because normally appendixes are optional, except as a book reviewer, I just feel like it's my responsibility to read absolutely the entire thing. And for you watching this, if you want to go to a library or a bookstore and just stand there in the aisle with this book and stand there for half an hour and read Appendix 1 and then put the book back, yeah, that's not a bad plan. That's what I'd do. But there is an affiliate link for the full book in the description. Gotta make that money for my Lord Jeff Bezos. The worst affiliate pitch ever. I'm sorry. The book as a whole, unfortunately, I am going to give a C-. It passes, but just barely. Technofeudalism is an admirable attempt to understand our society today by viewing it through a Marxist conception of capitalism with a splash of feudalism. But the book could be clearer, it could be more concise, and its arguments are insufficient in rigor and depth to warrant its rather grandiose conclusions.